Bitcoin has smashed through the $120,000 mark, hitting a new record high as investors eye a pivotal week in Washington. US lawmakers kicking off Crypto Week with key legislation on digital assets set to be debated, a move that's energizing the entire crypto market. Momentum now building, with Bitcoin gaining 31% this year. Experts now viewing it as more than just hype, but a real hedge against uncertainty. For more, let's bring in Oz Sultan from Sultan Interactive Group. Oz, what's driving this renewed surge in Bitcoin right now, and how much of it can be attributed to actions taken by the White House?
So I think it's two things. Number one is the hype cycle, which Michael Turpin talks about in his book, and that's kind of tracked what Bitcoin has done cyclically since 2010. And so we're moving into another parabolic now, right, which should last probably towards the end of the year before we see a pullback from the bears again. Crypto Week tends to help with this. So we've got the Genius Act framework, which is going to allow for the dollar-denominated raise of stable coins. That's supposed to pass tomorrow. The Clarity Act, which is the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, is also slated to pass tomorrow. And what this does is this simplifies the regulatory guidelines around crypto, which before was in the hands of 7 different agencies. So now it's the SEC for securities, the CFTC for commodities, and stablecoins will be under new standards. It aims to pull all the ambiguity out of the ecosystem, which is going to make it simpler for companies to come into the United States if they're interested in bringing an exchange or even a new crypto framework for stablecoin issuance. And then lastly, there's an anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, which should pass this week. It's working its way through through the Senate. What this is going to do is prohibit the United States government from ever issuing a central bank digital currency. So this is a hedge against the stability of the dollar long term. And it's also tying back to financial privacy and government overreach concerns that are out there. I think these things, in essence, have sort of correlated with the market hits and the market's push to $123,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But I think that the sale of Circle, which is again, Coinbase hopped into there, BlackRock hopped in, that kind of a thing. So USDC, its parent, is being sold. Opportunities that are now moving in the Tether ecosystem. And then as of today, ISO 20022 is live, meaning that we are slowly in the next 2 years moving off of the SWIFT banking system and moving into an era where your cross-border payments are largely going to be in XRP.
So sorry to interrupt, Oz. There's obviously a lot happening at the moment. How significant is Crypto Week in shaping the future of digital assets?
It's huge, because for the first time in really 3 administrations, we have some regulatory clarity as to what the implications are for companies looking to play inside of the market. We're also going to start getting some guidelines on, your altcoins, as well as what we used to call shit coins inside of the market, which are largely being driven by platforms like Pump Fund. So, how you view these as investment assets is becoming clarified, and also how liquidity moves in the market is being clarified. And it's just safer for investors, it's safer for institutions, and it stands to make crypto really, a bedrock next to gold and some other securities that we evaluate on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, which obviously is something that is probably needed. Give us a clear regulatory framework, do you think, from the US? Do you think that will actually help to bring institutional investors off the sidelines?
Absolutely. Right now you've got multiple ETFs that are approved inside of the US and Canada. You've got European ETFs that are moving forward. Now what this does is this sets a framework by which institutions are more comfortable acquiring Bitcoin or more comfortable acquiring cryptos and adding them to their portfolios. There's also the banking regs that have changed. The Office of the Comptroller of Currency has said that all banks can now custody crypto. So within a 24-month cycle, you may see when you go into your online account, excuse me, that right next to dollars, you have Bitcoin and maybe a couple other assets that are going to be playing inside of this new payment ecosystem.
Yeah, and just finally, are we looking at a sustained rally, do you think, or another volatile spike?
I think it's a bit of both. Every single time we've seen these sorts of moves from a regulatory perspective, we've seen alternative moves. Keep in mind that, we're going anti-CBDC, whereas the European Union is going Euro token. So that's their CBDC, and that has a lot of controls in terms of how you use it. It's also America's perspective that the E-yuan, which is a CBDC in China, where they can turn off the currency if you don't spend it within a certain period of time. We want to prevent those types of, onerous moves and
Yeah,
onerous overreach by government.
yeah.
So it is a bit of a boy. It is a bit into the hype cycle that Turpin talks about.
Mm.
It's a bit of, where Gary Cardone sits on these things and is putting crypto into real estate trusts, but
Yeah.
the remainder of it is to be seen.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Oz Sultan, always appreciate your insights on Ticker. Thank you.
Thank you.